Welcome back to King Kong Kids Storytime. We are reading Ali and the Golden Eagle by Wayne Grover. Chapter 15, The Contest. Ali and I woke up at 6 a.m. while the night was still black as velvet to prepare Samson for the contest. The stars were twinkling as we made our way to the contest field, with Samson flapping on Ali's shoulder. On the horizon, the star cluster, known as the Southern Cross, blazed with an intensity that made us stop and stare at it. I knew ancient seamen had used it to steer their sailing ships by. I explained to Ali how it marked the south, while the North Star, Polaris, marked the north. But he already knew both celestial bodies as well as others used by Bedouins for centuries as they wandered the trackless deserts. Standing on the palace grounds, surrounded by ragged mountains, we watched the first rays of dawn. The desert was a beautiful place at sunrise. We were not alone. We could see dozens of expensive campers and trucks with license plates from almost every neighboring Arab state parked on the road leading to the contest area. The contestants and their birds had arrived overnight. There was to be a hawk class with goshawks and Cooper's hawks that hunted ground prey. There was an open hunting class where the gerfalcons and peregrine and Egyptian black falcons were to hunt winged prey. The winners of each class would then compete for the grand prize. They would be timed to see how long it took them to reach a specific flying target, make the capture, and return to their master's arms. The judges would be watching the handler's technique, the bird's speed and attack style, and how well it responded to its master's control calls. We hurried to let Samson get the sight and scent of all the people. He needed privacy before the field was filled with noise and the sky with birds. We walked down the sloping grassy field for about a quarter mile with Samson watching every step intently. He wanted to be free to fly, but Ali had him securely fastened to his leg restraints. A covey of grouse suddenly took wing with a whirring noise that made Samson strain to get into the air. He was hungry and wanted to hunt. We continued around the perimeter of the main contest field, examining every foot. I want to let Samson fly free for a short while before we go back for breakfast. I'm going to release him here. Ali reached up and unsnapped first one leg and then the other. Samson sat still, although freed. Ali raised his right arm and pointed skyward, and Samson immediately flew off. It was a new trick for them both, and I was impressed. Watch this, Wayne. Ali placed his hand on his shoulder and stood still. Samson, still gaining altitude, wheeled in flight and dived straight back and landed on Ali's shoulder. Wow, I said in English. Very impressive, Ali. Any more tricks? Again he pointed and Samson flew. He then swung his arm and pointed westward. Samson turned in flight and flew in a westward direction. They repeated the trick to the east and to the north. We walked to the palace gate and Ali stopped and placed his hand on his shoulder. I could barely see Samson in the distance, but evidently the expression eagle eye was well founded because he came at once and landed. It was the closest control of a wild creature that I had ever seen. I knew that his father and ancestors had done it before him. Now it was Ali's turn. We headed back to the palace secured Samson to his stand, and had breakfast. I could see Faisal was ready. Gone was the tobe, replaced by Western dress. He wore a beautiful leather jacket with matching riding trousers tucked into shiny knee-high boots. He was all business and set to win. By the time we returned to the contest area, there were hundreds of people gathered. A large grandstand with comfortable leather sofas on colorful oriental carpets stood in the middle of the high platform. The flag of Saudi Arabia flew from 100 different masts, lining both sides of the field. The contest was to begin at 10 a.m., and by 9:30, everyone was in place. The stands were full, the contestants were ready, and all were anxiously waiting for the king to arrive to start the show. 10 tall black men from the Sudan, each with the typical cheek scars from their rites of passage into manhood, stood ready to sound the long trumpets they held across their chests. They wore red jackets trimmed with gold buttons and black riding pants tucked into high boots. The air was filled with expectancy and excitement. The judges were at their assigned places in the field. The quarry release men were ready with their cages of birds and animals. At 5 minutes before 10 o'clock, the trumpeters lifted their golden horns and sounded the royal salute. The king's motorcade was coming. 10 black Mercedes-Benz cars rolled along in perfect formation. From both front fenders of the lead car flew the king's royal flag. The cars stopped by the platform, and the drivers got out. Each car door was opened at the exact same moment. The king emerged from his car and looked over the vast group of people, animals, and birds, then climbed the stairs, followed by his entourage of sons and brothers. He gestured to the trumpeters, another blast from their horns, and there was silence. The king raised both arms high. He looked out over the crowd, turned his head from side to side, and shouted for all to hear, "Let the contest begin!" The chief judge announced the order of events, stated the rules, and called for the first 5 contestants to get ready. The morning events were for the ground hunters. These hunters' birds went after small animals on the ground and were trained to ignore other birds in the air. Most of the entrants were from Libya and Egypt, with a few from Morocco and Algeria. When the judge gave the start order, a man downfield released a small hare from a cage and fired a pistol with a blank cartridge. The contestant released his bird at the sound of the shot, and the hunt was on. Each bird flew down the field looking for the movement of game. Once the game was spotted, the bird would dive on the animal, sink its talons into its back, and lift it off the ground. The bird had to carry the hare back to its master, drop it, and land on his glove. The timing started with the shot and ended when the bird landed on the glove. The judges then marked their ballots and waited for the next contestant. For 3 hours, each contestant did his best to show style, ability, and bird control. In the end, a Moroccan businessman won first place. A hawker from Egypt came in second, and a Libyan's red hawk was third. There were 100 dead rabbits that were carefully gathered up to become part of the feast that followed the contest. Before the aerial hunters contest began, tea and lunch were served to everyone, picnic style. The king left for the palace and then returned to open the second half of the contest. There would be one winner in 3 separate categories. Then each winner would perform a demonstration, and one would be selected as grand prize winner. After the king was seated, the chief judge announced, "The free flight hunters category is now open. Each contestant will be judged in each of the 3 categories. The first will be the handler's ability to direct his bird to the proper quarry. 2 grouse will be let go, 1 from each side of the field. I will announce which quarry your bird is to hunt after the opening shot has been fired. The second category will be judged on the basis of the time it takes the hunter to get the quarry, make the capture, and return. The third category depends on how the handler and his bird respond to my commands. The 3 handlers who earn the most points will then compete for the championship. The winner will receive 1 million Saudi rials from the king. That was approximately $300,000 in U.S. currency. The first entrant was from Libya. His black falcon flew off his arm, left the field, and was not seen again. The second contestant was an Arabian royal family member with a female peregrine falcon. As his falcon started downfield, the judge called "left target" to direct his bird to the correct grouse. The falconer blew 2 short blasts on a gold whistle. The falcon darted left and caught up with the grouse before it crossed the field limit mark. It hit the grouse hard, captured it, and flew back to its master. But instead of landing immediately, it flew twice in a big circle before it dropped the prey and landed on the disappointed handler's glove. For 3 hours, we watched the dozens of contestants try their skill. When it was Faisal's turn, he selected his favorite white gerfalcon, took its ornate hood off, and stood ready. Bang! The signal shot was fired. His bird flew off his arm straight as an arrow downfield. The judge called "right target," and Faisal immediately blew 3 short blasts on his control whistle. The gerfalcon veered right, caught the grouse from the rear with its talons, and turned to fly directly back to Faisal. It dropped the quarry at the prince's feet and landed smoothly on his arm. A great murmur went up from the crowd as they recognized the best performance of any bird so far. Faisal smiled. He knew he was way ahead on points. His style on both launch and recovery was nothing short of perfection. Prince Turki was next. He also used one of the royal gerfalcons. At the shot, his bird's launch was a little slow. It was up to the handler to anticipate the gun and drop his arm the moment it sounded. Unfortunately, Turki's bird failed to go to the right target, got the wrong bird, and was disqualified. 3 more royal princes using gerfalcons did their best. 2 were so close to Faisal's time that none of us knew who was ahead. "Uh-oh, here's the man to beat," whispered Faisal as the Emir of Kuwait took his place on the mark. "He has the finest birds in the world and uses the best trainers. He beats us nearly every year. But I think I have a chance if he isn't perfect this time." Ali watched the Emir intently, all the while stroking Samson's feathers as he stood next to the big bird's stand. "They say the Emir's birds are the fastest in the world, Ali. They train every day. So don't feel bad if Samson can't beat them. You can always come back next year." Ali looked up into my eyes and said seriously, "Samson and I have some big surprises for all of you." Bang! The Emir's black falcon flew rapidly from his arm, staying low over the ground. "Right target," called the judge. A single, high-pitched whistle sharply sounded. The falcon stayed low, but turned to intercept the grouse, crossing from the right release point. Within seconds, the hunter was on the prey, making the capture. It swooped down, caught the grouse, and flew low back to the emir. By staying low, the falcon cut the time needed to get to the target. It saved valuable seconds by not flying up against gravity and then having to dive for the kill. A loud cheer went up as the spectators voiced their pleasure with the black falcon's performance. Faisal groaned. "He's done it again. Look at the judge's smile. It's all over." Several more contestants sent their birds downfield, but everyone knew the Emir of Kuwait had won again. Finally, the last contestant was called. For the first time in the history of this event, we have an entrant with an eagle. The crowd's response was so loud, it drowned out the announcer. "Please, please, quiet." The noise died down, but didn't stop. From the village of Ezratu in the Great Rift Valley to the west, Ali, son of Mustafa, will demonstrate the hunting skills of his golden eagle. This is Ali's first event, and his eagle has never flown under these rules before. Laughter rolled across the field as men who had attended hundreds of falcon contests looked unbelievingly while Ali stepped up to the starting mark. He stood quietly as Samson opened and closed his wings in excitement. Bang! Samson was airborne before the sound of the shot faded away. He flapped his big wings and gained about 100 feet in altitude as he went straight downfield. The grouse handlers on each side of the field threw up the target birds, but suddenly a second grouse appeared on the right. A cage had been left ajar, and the second bird flew with the first. The right target had two grouse flitting at full speed across the field toward a grove of trees. The judge did not see the double release until it was too late. He ordered right target. A moan went up from those who saw the mistake. Ali saw it too, but he instantly pointed his arm right. I heard a man nearby say, "Look, the boy does not use a whistle. Instead, he uses his arm to control the bird." Samson veered toward the right, but not toward the grouse. At first, it looked as if he had not sighted the target. Unlike most hunting birds that go after a prey's actual position in the air, Samson was lining up his attack point out ahead of the target, where it would be when they met in the air. He was twice as high as the falcons had hunted, and true to his eagle heritage, he dived on his prey, using his superior speed to catch them. Everyone on the field saw the speed with which the eagle closed the gap on the two grouse. Tucking his wings close, he hurtled down the fleeing pair. They were about 50 feet apart when the trailing one was caught in Samson's talons. He never missed a beat with his mighty wings and quickly came up behind the second quarry. He grabbed it from flight, holding it in his other foot. Ali saw what Samson did and opened his arms wide, palms facing each other, and quickly clapped his hands. Samson noticeably sped up, boring a hole in the sky directly back to Ali. Ali held his right arm straight out to his side, then dropped it. That was his signal for Samson to drop the prey. As Ali's hand stopped at his side, the two grouse were already dropping at his feet. Samson was moving so fast he had to flare his wings widely to stop on Ali's shoulder, nearly covering him from view. A roar went up from the crowd as hundreds of people registered their awe for a performance the likes of which they had never before seen. In the royal grandstand, the king stood up and motioned for everyone to stand. The applause was deafening. It went on for a full 5 minutes until the king stepped down from the platform and walked over to Ali, still standing on the start mark. Ali, never in my life have I seen such a performance. Your eagle has shown us what a mighty bird can do in the right trainer's hands. You make me proud to be your king. Samson was flapping his wings, anxious to hunt more as Ali stood face to face with his king. The chief judge walked over with his stopwatch in hand. He said to the king, "It's impossible. This boy and his eagle have shortened the record by a full 10 seconds, and the bird caught 2 quarry." The king made the official announcement. "Ali, son of Mustafa, from the house of Zambir, I declare you the winner in all 3 categories. The Emir of Kuwait places 2nd, and Prince Faisal places 3rd. A roar went up in the crowd. "More, more, more!" the people shouted. They remained standing, every person straining to see the small boy with his eagle. Ali pointed skyward, and Samson flew off. The rush of air from his wings stirred the king's robes. As the eagle climbed, Ali pointed left, and Samson flew left. Ali pointed his arm straight up, and Samson climbed rapidly until he was nothing more than a speck in the sky. Then Ali turned his back to the field and faced the king directly. "What would you have him do, my king?" The king thought for a moment and then said, "Have him fly to the right and come down lower." Ali closed his eyes and stood in silence. The king looked puzzled. "Did you hear me, Ali?" Ali remained still. Then what happened made the king cover his mouth with his hand in disbelief. He squinted and looked high in the sky at the eagle. Samson was hurtling earthward, turning to the right as he dropped. "Allah be praised," mumbled the king. "I have heard of this ability from old books about the Bedouins, but now I am seeing it with my own eyes." Ali, still with his back to Samson, said quietly, "Now Samson will fly low over the crowd and come to me." We all watched with wonder. Samson flew down close to the ground, circled just above the heads of the cheering crowd, and came toward us. Faisal was speechless. He looked first at Ali, then at Samson approaching. The king stepped back to watch. Samson slowed to an almost a stop and fluttered to a light landing on Ali's shoulder. He stood there with wings open to cool himself. "Now, with your permission, I would like to have 10 target birds released at once," Ali said to the nearly speechless judge. The judge so ordered. Down the field, from both left and right, 10 birds were released, flitting in every direction. Ali stroked Samson's head a moment, then pointed to the flying grouse. Samson lifted off, again rustling the tobes of those nearby. He flew high and fast toward a group of 3 grouse close together. The eagle caught up with the birds and dived on them from above. For a moment we couldn't see what was happening. Then one by one the grouse fell to the ground, mortally wounded by Samson's beak and talons. Wheeling sharply in flight, Samson went after 2 more grouse near the center of the field. He flew right up behind them and knocked them from the air. One dropped, but one tried to get away. Samson flew above the fleeing grouse, sank his talons into its back, and it too fell, mortally wounded. The crowd cheered wildly. The other grouse were near a grove of trees off to the west side of the field. Each was trying to get away the best it could. Ali turned, pointed his left arm toward the fleeing grouse, and Samson rapidly closed the distance to the nearest one. With a flurry of feathers, he caught one, then another, knocking them to the ground. The 3 remaining birds made it to the protection of the trees. Ali turned again with his back to Samson and closed his eyes. Samson turned, flew higher, and started back toward us. As he neared, Ali pointed his arms straight up. Samson's big wings bit the air as he climbed higher and higher. "Say the word, my king, and Samson will come to me." The king watched as Samson continued flying higher and higher. "Now, Ali." Ali touched his left shoulder and held his hand there. Samson started back down. He looked like a falling rock with his wings tucked up close. About 50 feet up, he opened his wings and fluttered down to land on Ali's shoulder. The spectators went crazy. There was shouting and cheering as they all tried to get close to Ali. The king's bodyguards had to act fast to restrain them. The king went back to the platform and motioned to the governor of the city of Abba to join him while Ali secured Samson to his perch. "Ali bin Mustafa from the village of Ezra II," announced the governor. "Come up to the platform." Now that the contest was over, Ali was nervous and hesitated. I whispered to him, "This is your moment. Go to the king." He walked to the stairs and went up. The governor praised him loudly and quoted from the Quran about boys growing into men with dignity. The king stood while all became silent and watched as he reached down and kissed Ali on each cheek. Keeping his hands on Ali's shoulders, he said for all to hear, "Ali, you make me proud to be an Arabian. I will tell your father and your whole village of my pride in you. My son, Prince Faisal, has told me of the needs of your village, and I am ordering a special team to go there and report back to me how I can help your people." The king presented Ali with a check for 1,000,000 rials and then kissed him again. Ali beamed with pride and joy. The festivities continued well into the night. There was feasting, music, and folk dancing. The king's kitchen staff had gathered up all the birds and animals slain in the hunt and prepared them as part of the feast held in honor of the winner of the contest. Ali was the happiest boy in the whole world that night. Everyone wanted to meet him and ask questions about how he controlled his eagle. He was polite to them all, but his answer was always the same. "You must become one with the bird." We had all witnessed a closeness between a wild creature and a human that defied explanation.